What's up, guys? It's Devin Harrington, the average Gen Xer, and welcome back to my channel where it has been a long week. It is Friday, December 19th, 2025, and this past Sunday, famed Hollywood director Rob Reiner and his lovely wife Michelle were tragically stabbed to death, allegedly by their own son. And I just can't let it go. So I just wanted to say a couple of things from my point of view about Rob Reiner. And then if you follow my content, you surely know that my current foster, Goldie, the Belgian Shepherd, this beautiful girl, found the perfect home with two perfect canine sisters and got adopted, and all was well and everything was unicorns and rainbows. And then suddenly I got a text saying it's not going to work out. One of my dogs is not having it. So I just wanted to talk about that. I so appreciate all my viewers who are animal lovers, who root for my fosters and who feel for them when they get returned, which does happen sometimes. This is the first time, I think, that I've had a foster return twice, but there are dogs out there that get returned any number of times, and eventually they find their people. So I just wanted to talk about those real quick and just say hello to everyone. And then tomorrow on Saturday, I will put out a regular video. But I got thrown for a loop this week. It was just, I was feeling some type of way. Anyway, let's talk about Rob Reiner for a second. So Rob Reiner, many people, most people, know him as an iconic director in Hollywood. You know, he's had a run of movies, mainly in the 80s and 90s, that directors dream of having like one or two hits like he's had. And he just kept doing boom, boom, one after the other, after the other. So a lot of people just think of him as this director. And his personality is legendary as well, that he is just the nicest guy and just so full of love. And so, that's hard to find sometimes in show business. So everyone that has been talking about him has been saying how kind he was and how many people in LA owe their careers to him. So being that I am Gen X, and this is a Gen X channel, I was born in 1970, and the show All in the Family started its 8-season run in 1971. And so my early childhood, pretty much my entire childhood, that show was on. And you really can't understand how groundbreaking that show was if you weren't alive at the time. Even though I was a kid, I still absorbed a lot of how different, how real the show was, the topics that it covered, how it just really changed the culture. I would say maybe like kids that grew up in the 90s, when Friends was always on, they had Friends on, was the background of their childhood. And so my childhood, it was like at my grandparents' house. I'm sure it wasn't always on, but it seemed like All in the Family was always on. I can still, I think, sing that song, Boy, the way Glenn Miller played songs that made the hit parade. Guys like us, we had it made. Those were the days. And that song still gives me comfort. The sound of Archie and Meathead, Michael Stivic, who was played by Rob Reiner, that was his first big break, their voices were always on in the background. And so I came to know him mainly as Meathead. And even after the show went off the air, it was still on in syndication. It's still on in syndication. And to this very day, if I catch it anywhere, just having it on in the background is comforting. It's like comfort food from childhood, that kind of thing. And so just looking at it from a Gen X standpoint, it is like a piece of my childhood has been killed. And I'm sure a lot of other people my age feel that way too, who remember him first as the character Michael Stivic, who was hilarious and was really like the first TV character that was full on bleeding heart liberal on TV. And yeah, it was just a groundbreaking show. They still teach that show in communications classes in college. But the other thing that I wanted to say about that, this is a child-free channel, and I cover a lot of child-free topics and a lot of topics of parents who regret having children, et cetera, et cetera. And I just cannot get the thought out of my head. Like, this is a couple who met, who fell in love, who got married, who had 3 lovely children, who were successful in their chosen fields, like wildly successful. They love their kids. Their hearts are in the right place. They did everything right. They had more money than they could possibly ever want to throw at a problem. They had it. And yet it was all for nothing. And obviously, Nick Reiner is alleged to have killed his parents. It does seem pretty cut and dry, but innocent until proven guilty in the US. But I just can't stop thinking about that. Like, obviously, the Reiners wanted to have children. They had a warm, happy home, and they wanted to help their kids. I keep seeing these interviews with Rob Reiner when he was talking about his son's addiction and how he just wanted to help and what can I do to help? And it cracks me up because they talk about the tough love that they were told to enforce by the experts. And then they Rob Reiner would say, but that's just not me. That's not how I'm wired. I'm a warm person. I want to help. And I remember when I was in my late teens, my stepfather just casually said, hey, you ever get arrested, don't call and wake us up. We don't care. You're on your own. You get yourself into something, you get yourself out. And I hate my stepfather, as many of you know. But not that I think that that's great parenting, but there is something to be said for letting kids pick themselves up when they fall. So I don't know what the answer is. I don't know. Mental illness and addiction are just the most complex human problems. And when you combine them, it's nearly always a disaster. But it's just really chilling that this extreme result can happen to people who did everything in their power to show their child love and to help them. And even this guy is 32 years old. They were still giving him a place to live and funding his lifestyle and all of that kind of thing. So it just makes you kind of it makes me feel a little bit hopeless for the human race. If, someone as wonderful and as well-intentioned as these folks can end up like this, it's so sad. It's really a tragedy of Shakespearean proportions. So let me know what you think of all this. If you're a true crime junkie like I am, have you been following the case? Because I am just on YouTube all day, watching one channel after another to see, what the latest details are and all of that, because it's just so astounding. It's just so unfair. The injustice of it all is, it just makes, it gets my guts, So let me know what you think. I really would love to hear your thoughts on that. And to Rob and Michelle, rest in peace. And here is the other thing I wanted to talk about today. So on Monday, I drove Goldie an hour away from where we live and brought her to her new adoptive parents. They had a great meet and greet. Their 2 female dogs loved Goldie. They were all running around in the yard, playing together and all that. And I give a big speech about how, well, not I, but pretty much every shelter will tell adopters, you got to give a dog time. You've got to give them a couple of days at least to integrate into the household, especially when there are other dogs. Where are you going? when there are other dogs. Dogs are pack animals. They have the same psychology as the wolf pack. They are all descended from wolves, if you go back far enough. And despite our making different breeds and domesticating them, dogs have wolf psychology. And when there's a new member that comes into the pack, there's going to be some squabbling and arguing to decide where that new one fits in the hierarchy. That's just how it goes. Horses are the same. Any kind of herd or pack animal, they're going to be, they're going to growl and I don't even know what was happening, if they were fighting over a toy or treats or what. But unfortunately, the general public does often think that if two dogs are getting along great and playing and taking naps together, and then the next day they are squabbling with each other, that means that they have decided they don't like each other, and so the new dog has to go. And that is what happened to Goldie, which was not her fault. She was just being a dog and trying to find her place in the home. And unfortunately, we can't force the general public to take its head out of its ass. So Goldie was returned. So she's here with me. She wants to take her nap, huh? So she's here with me until she gets adopted. And I know there's lots of you out there who think that I should keep her. And of course, I want to keep all my fosters. But I want to be able to continue to rescue more dogs. So she'll find her people eventually. Until then, she lives here with me. And she's happy. And as far as being adopted, she's a puppy. She doesn't know anything about adoption fees or all of that kind of stuff. So she thinks she went on a fun adventure and had a sleepover with two other dogs, and they had a great time. So she's fine. And on to the next one. We'll see what happens. You want to get down? Oh. So that's the story of Goldie's second failed adoption. And that's two adoptions where they didn't even give her 24 hours. And it seems to be that people are afraid to pick up the wizard that knows everything and Google how to introduce a new dog into the pack. I mean, I don't know. It would seem obvious to me, but unfortunately, there are still a lot of people out there that consider domesticated animals to be like dolls, and they're just supposed to sit there and be pretty and not have any natural instincts. So anyway, that's my story with Goldie, and I'm glad she's still here. She is a real sweetie. So we'll see how long it takes until the next adopter comes along. But as I've said before, I've fostered animals that were elderly, that had cancer, that had broken limbs to recover from, all kinds of different stuff. And someone comes along and that's the dog they've been searching for. So she will find her people soon, as they all do. And until then, I will continue to foster her. So I'll be back tomorrow with a new video on Alexandra Rodriguez.
Oh, hell no!
And I'll see you guys then. Thank you so much.